What's this?
Makes you a soup for 24 hours. You're gonna need it.
The whole point of what we do is that no one should have that kind of power.
For once, I'll level the fucking playing field.
I show people the real me. I mean, they fucking love me.
By the heroes of
Fuck! Christ. Soldier boy. Oh, shit!
Hello, and welcome to Mix's Emmy Awards season. I'm Tom Kenny, the editor of Mix Magazine, and we're here today to talk about the supremely popular The Boys, an Amazon original production. And today we have with us the supervising sound editor, Wade Barnett, who has been with the show from the very beginning, all 3 seasons, and currently working on the 4th, and was previously nominated in 2020 for Outstanding Sound Editing in an Hour Drama. Welcome, Wade. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Before we get to episode 308, which is the nominated episode, I'd like to talk a bit about the show, if we could, for those not familiar with it. It's very unique. You're based on a graphic novel, comic book, and yet it's grounded in reality, has superhero elements. It's a family drama at times. And it has a real sense of black comedy. It has a soft touches, and it has hysterical touches. Before you began back in 2019, Wade, and you met with Eric, the creator, what were the discussions about? What was the ideas of tone, how sound would work in this approach?
Well, Eric's very involved in the sound and the creating of these worlds. So when we first started on season 1, actually before we got even the first turnover, before the first episode had even been finished editing, we were kind of working off of some like animatics and drawings of the superheroes. And we would meet with him, and he would tell us, how he wanted, the sound design to feel for the show. And so we did a number of sound design reviews before we even had picture locked, and the main thing that he really wanted to set for like an overall tone for the design and stuff for the superheroes was that it all sounded very organic and real and not overly digitized or, synthesized in terms of the sounds that we chose. So, we did a number of reviews with him even before, we got started with the first mix. And he's awesome with it. He loves to spend time working with the sound department. So we're really fortunate.
Organic, yes, but there's also some exaggeration, some sort of horror film elements and everything. So you're yes. Moving. I mean, he has a nice anchor. How do you establish that anchor in the real world? I should say before. Is this Foley? Is this dialogue?
Yeah. Well, yes. To go back to your point about the gore, what I mean? Eric loves the really visceral, wet. So we do push the limits there a little bit. Eric really loves that stuff, and we really like to do it as well. A lot of showrunners would really push us as hard to go as gory, but Eric loves that stuff, and we really like cutting that stuff. It's fun to cut. So our effects editors do a lot of that stuff. Jeff Pitts, our main sound effects editor, sound designer, he cuts a lot of that stuff. Our Foley department at Sovereign Sound, they help us a lot with the gory, the gushy stuff. And all the props and stuff really kind of grounded in reality as well. So yeah, we have a really solid team on this show.
But did he allow you to go exaggerated? Did you talk about, because visually it's striking at times, very, very well done. Did he let you loose at times to?
It depends on the moment. You know what I mean? Obviously, a lot of the things don't really happen in real life. So like body explosions and stuff like that, we kind of, embellish what that might sound like. Or, one kind of thing that we go big on is like the punches, we try to make them sound a little more superhuman. So that might not sound like a literal punch. We try to give it a little crunch, a little, more low end, just more elements that fill out the sonic range, just so we can make it sound, bigger than life.
Well, one of the
For
things I
some of the
noticed from
moments.
the very first episode when I went back and watched season 1, episode 1, is we're establishing in New York City where there's a lot of street scenes. There's a lot of action, which sort of places us in the modern world. But that can also be very difficult for dialogue. Um, your background seems to be in a lot of dialogue and ADR, simultaneously with supervising. How would you describe the production, both the dialogue tracks and PFX, if you get them? Uh,
Yeah. Well, our production sound mixers are quite good. But they are on location a lot. So, no matter how good of a production sound mixer you are, if you're recording on a busy city street in downtown, you're not always in control of your environment. So we do have some difficult scenes, in some of the locations. We record in Toronto, so sometimes weather, or they shoot in Toronto rather. So sometimes, weather plays a role. But whatever we can't clean up with our, we have an amazing dialogue editor, Ryan Briley, Chris Kawadi. So, they have a lot of tools these days that help us clean up dialogue, but what we can't do with dialogue cleanup, we do an ADR, and luckily our talented actors are really good on the show with matching themselves in ADR.
well, I certainly wanted to mention dialogue because you hear every word. I mean, it's a nicely, cleanly, and it's when stuff's moving fast, it's often easy to get swept up in effects. The dialogue punches through here. Very good.
Yeah, we have a fantastic mixer. Alex Fairman is our dialogue mixer on this show. So that is hats off to her for all that clean dialogue.
But as they say, nobody comes out of the show whistling the dialogue. So let's move. Let's move to episode 308. It's almost a feature film. We're at the season finale, and just sort of as a setup, this is going to be the confrontation between the Vaught International and the boys. But what's interesting to me with 308 is that it starts with a father-son moment, and it ends with the same father and son, Homelander with his boy Ryan, and it involves with Soldier Boy. It's set up as this family moment with huge battles. Am I accurate there? When you first see that, it's framed by this sort of not a superhero, a family movie.
Yeah. I think that's one reason why the fans really like this show is because it does have a lot of the aspects of a drama, that sometimes you don't necessarily see the depth of it in some other superhero shows. So yeah, there is that connection between a father and a son, and the writing is amazing. It's a pretty complicated relationship between Homelander and Ryan, and then Soldier Boy, and then also Butcher because he was married to Ryan's mother. So yeah, that's a very complex relationship, and it's good. It's really well written.
And at the beginning, when Homelander and Ryan come together outdoors, it's a little softer but tension, and at the end when they come, you're like, oh no, season 4. The father and son are together. Is there sort of anything you do? They're both outdoor scenes. Is there a menace in the second one? Is there a softer approach to the sound to the first one? How does that work?
Yeah, that second scene was really fantastic. That actually became like a meme, actually, because that kind of showed Homelander could use his powers in a terrible way, and the crowd kind of still backed him. Yeah, so that ended up being a very well watched scene, and it ended up being a really popular meme as well. So yeah, that kind of showed Homelander, the way that he's willing to stick up for his son and kind of introduce him to the world and all that. So yeah, that was a really cool one to cut.
And we'll get back to the final scene because that's the setup. But much of the show is sort of preparing us for this confrontation. And for those who haven't seen it, about 20 minutes before the ending, there's a giant battle scene that we're building up to throughout, and you can see that. Can you talk to me sort of about the pacing of that hour? Yeah, well, before the battle, and then we'll get to the battle. But how does sound help build that tension?
You just try to kind of slowly with the picture editors do a great job of kind of building it as well. But you want to let it breathe. So you want to in quieter scenes, you know what I mean. You want to sometimes silence is your friend, right? So you don't want it to be, full level. All the way across the board, because then you want the audience to kind of lean in, and then when the big stuff happens, then they kind of are impacted more sonically. So yeah, it's about weaving the sound, and letting the quiet moments breathe, and letting the dialogue take over, and have the audience really focus on that, and the performances. And then when we get to the big battle scenes, then we really hit the effects harder.
Yeah, well, I love the environments from the boys' lair in the first season, when they're down sort of in a basement, to now they're almost above ground by season 3, and a lot takes place in Vaught International, in the tower. How establishing those different environments, and the battle takes place in Vaught Tower. So, how do you establish environments? How do you make it feel creepy? How do you make it feel corporate? How does that work?
Yeah, so we really try to play in this show, play the sounds of the city a lot, and Eric is big on playing backgrounds. So it's not one of those shows where anything that's stepping on dialogue at all gets taken out. He really likes to feel the city. He likes to feel the environment. So we're encouraged to push, excuse me, to push all those moments, filling the backgrounds with New York City traffic. All that kind of stuff. So yeah, we have a very good, or we're lucky to have our showrunner be in favor of using all those elements.
Yeah, that's a big advantage, when they pay attention. But certainly, the battle that we're building up to it. We have Butcher bringing Soldier Boy to confront Homelander. But before we even get there, while they're coming to the battle, Homelander has his own confrontation with the silent Black Noir. That confrontation scene where it's sort of a prelude to battle. Tell me about that. It's a very intimate and horrific couple moments.
It is a horrific moment. Yeah, Black Noir was kind of always someone that Homelander turned to, to be his buddy, but also, his support system. And, that was really just all about him feeling betrayed by, Black Noir, kind of withholding the truth, about Soldier Boy, and the history there. So, Homelander felt betrayed. So once he found that information out, he had to end Black Noir. That was the end of Black Noir. You don't want to turn on Homelander. You don't want to get him mad. So unfortunately, that was the end of Black Noir.
And that conflict ends with one of their guts spilling out of the floor. So I have to ask you, in a particular moment in the gore scenes, are you plopping things down with original recordings? How are you making the sounds of somebody's intestines being pulled out?
Yeah, it's working with our sound designer, Jeff Pitts, a lot. And he does a really great job with the effects editing. And then, like I said before, our Foley department on Sovereign Sound, they record a lot of the stuff kind of to sync. So yeah, getting all that squishy, gushy guts plopping and that kind of stuff. A lot of that wetness is Foley. And then, the bones crunching through and, the kind of the tendon dripping and stuff. A lot of that is effects. So, it's a marriage between the two there. But I work really closely with both departments, effects and Foley.
There's some great Foley work in this, by the way. And then after the prelude, we have what starts as a battle between really Soldier Boy, Homelander, this whole group in there. But then as that battle starts, and that fight with punches and later, another battle starts going on with Maeve. Another battle starts going on at the lab with Kamiko. And we're cutting, and this takes place over a good 10 or 15 minutes, and we're cutting to between 3 fights. You have a lot of perspectives, a lot of different sounds going on. Kamiko has a knife. Other people do body punches. Can you talk to me about that scene? Break it down for me and how you approached it, if you would, because it's wonderfully executed.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was a team effort, and I think it all starts with Eric working with the picture editors. You know what I mean, to get that flow and to go back and forth to how we're bouncing back and forth between each moment or each location. And we have really fantastic music going throughout all of it. With our composer Chris Leonards and Christopher Brooks editing the music. But also really good music in the scene with Kamiko, when she puts her headphones in and she's kind of beating up the military guys to the beat of the song.
To the beat of Footloose, no less. A song from Footloose.
Yeah, so that was really fun. And then obviously, working with the sound effects, it's really great when you have the opportunity to go from one fight scene to another, and then, all these different locations, because you can kind of weave them a little bit differently to make it more dynamic. The picture department did a really great job. The music department did a really great job. And then the mixers did a really great job too. You know what I mean? Of weaving it all, whenever you have that much music and that many sound effects all on the table, figuring out how to weave it is very difficult. So, it was a team effort. The mixers, the editors, picture editors, music department, everybody.
And I noticed it was cut in such a way that you did get momentary moments. You did get moments to breathe. And you have to in something like that. You can't do 20 minutes straight in a battle. Agreed? I mean, where do you pick those moments? It's not...
it's tough. I mean, there's one moment where, in particular, where Homelander kind of gets the metal straw stuck in his ear by Maeve. And so we kind of go into his head. We have like this headspace moment with tinnitus, and, it's like we're inside of his perspective. So that was one moment where we kind of got to like suck everything out and kind of go into his world, which was really great. And then, there's a couple of moments where we kind of let the music just take over, and we kind of fade out the backgrounds a little bit so that we let the music have its moment. And then, as Annie's kind of building her power, then we kind of, it's a blend of sound design and of music kind of coming together to build that big kind of cinematic moment before the big blast.
Yeah, and it's a nice one because there's almost mechanical sounds when they're flipping on the lights, when Huey's flipping on the lights. You have this mechanical, and you have sort of more synthetic coming from Starlight. A wonderful blend of the...
Yeah, thank you. It's really cool working with Starlight's powers, because each time she's in a different environment, she kind of draws her energy in a different way. So we get to kind of play with that each time. Yeah. And on the set at the Vought Towers, there's all that electrical stuff like you talked about. So yeah, that was really cool playing with that.
So honestly, thinking of that type of battle scene in total, this is a season finale. This is an ultimate confrontation. What are the biggest challenges in putting together something like that, especially because it takes place over a long period of time?
Yeah, the duration of the fight is really it's long. So, you got to weave your sounds. There's so many punches and so many kicks that, you have to spend a lot of time making them sound unique. You know what I mean? You don't want a knee to the stomach to sound the same as a punch to the face. So giving Rich Weingart, our effects mixer, all the different food groups to work with on the stage, and also kind of what's going on with the music at any given time might affect the way that you cut a certain sound. Just kind of making each one sound unique and also playing well against the music sonically is really the hardest part. Yeah. And then, a lot of also what we have to deal with is like some of these people have superhuman strength and, power and skin, and then some are slightly more vulnerable. So we have that to deal with as well. So we try to alter those sounds based on who we're dealing with.
Yeah, and you have a lot of dynamics in there. I mean, there's breaking glass certainly on the high end, and there's thumping down there, and it's certainly opportunity for a lot of low end. How did you deal with low end and stuff like that when you know it's going to television? Do you want to goose it more? Or?
Yeah, well, I give my hat off to Rich Weingart because he's, I let him handle that for the most part. So we make sure editorially that he has, the low and the high end. And then, what we do is we also monitor on smaller speakers to kind of see what's going to be coming through in certain environments, as well as, in our full surround system. So it's just about monitoring and knowing what's going to translate and what isn't.
Pay attention. So I'll give me one final question here. Why this episode? When you have 8, obviously it's jam packed and it's exciting. But what makes it different?
I think obviously the big battle scene is cool because it's a lot of action and a lot of sound design. But it is hard to choose. I've kind of gone back and forth in other seasons about which one to choose and which one to eliminate. And this season there was a couple of different ones that I had thought about, and I'd gone through, and you kind of got to scan through and everything. But really, kind of this one, there's a lot of really good story involved with the sound design, and ultimately, I think that's what drives a good episode of television is story, along with what we do on our end, and getting nominated. So the story is one of the main reasons why I chose this one, because in some of the other episodes, there's almost equally as great, sound work, in my opinion. So, the story, I think, is the main reason why I chose this one.
Because it's a good answer. That's sort of what appeals to me. It's funny in watching it. That teenage boy in me finds satisfaction. I mean, I have great satisfaction, and then the aging adult in me who looks with the critical eye also has a lot of fun. So it appeals across the spectrum, and I think you've really handled it well.
Thank you.
I wish you lots of luck in this year's voting, which begins next week. And I wish you a lot of luck ahead on season 4. I know you're working on it down there. Thank you for joining us, Wade.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And thank you to our sponsor, Amazon. Now, everybody go vote.